That's the check. Will it even matter?
I love that, just to see if the first dice, and it was a 6. Well, if the duel is as exciting as the dice roll, we're in for a treat here as we start off with our first card, Dormouse.
Yeah, so this is the absolute best opening play. It's going to be met by a copy of Effect Veiler. It does look like we have one of the traps, but as we kind of commented on yesterday, although there are 3 Malice trap cards, not all of them actually let you dodge cards like Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence. It looks like he has a copy of GWC06, which is unfortunately not one of them.
Not going to help here.
So even though that is the absolute best opening play, that assumes it goes uninterrupted. The fact that he didn't have any way of extending past that, which would suggest he doesn't have a Bystial in his hand, it means that Dennis is going to feel pretty good here. Now, he can probably read that the 2 spell or trap cards are going to be cards like Infinite Impermanence. It could potentially be that GWC06 like we commented on. What's actually interesting here is that Jib has elected not to play Infinite Impermanence at all, so I'm curious if he knows that instead Jib is playing Dominus Impulse.
Well, here's the thing, you know, when you are up at the top tables, it's not hard to see other duelists in your line of sight, so it's possible that all of these duels who've been playing next to each other with their high records may have gotten a little bit of insight there, right? But now we're just doing some pretty standard stuff using Fiendsmith Track to get Fiendsmith Lurry. Excuse me, Fiendsmith Lurry feels like it. Fabled Lurry, I should say. Special Summon, and now we'll go into Fiendsmith Requiem.
It's an honorable Fiendsmith at this point.
Certainly is, certainly is. Any light fiend can be.
So this is probably going to be the Impulse that I mentioned.
Oh, Dominus Impulse indeed. So locked out of certain attributes, but not a big deal if you build your deck around it. Dennis just going to confirm.
Just which the attributes are.
It's going to be light, earth, and wind. And that does give a little bit of insight as you continue play. You're like, oh, I'm not going to get Effect Veilered. Oh, maybe there's no Mulcharmy for Wallows here. And maybe a Ghost Spell at Haunted Mansion, teasing.
And Jib is playing Effect Veiler.
Ooh, so it's just an order of operations thing. He thought that it was worth it enough to commit all of those attributes away from his access and use Dominus Impulse to basically stop his opponent, but, well, it may not have done that much because we are still seeing Fiend Smith's Lacrima of the Crimson Tears here.
So typically, you know, if you're able to sequence your play, you can Effect Veiler first and then Impulse later. Additionally, if you can ever Impulse something like a Nibiru, there's just a ton of value in that too. So it can be understandable to incorporate Effect Veiler and Impulse in the same deck. Now, Veiler without Imperm and Impulse, that's a little bit of an interesting deck arrangement.
Yeah, especially if you can end up drawing those Veilers and you don't have any infinite impermanences to use. This could be a little difficult to get through, but right now we've got relatively uninhibited play. Going to bring out the Necro-Equipped Princess and then discard the Fiendsmith Engraver there to grab simply a Fiendsmith Tract again. Taking just a moment there.
It's like Dennis has a copy of Nibiru himself in hand. I think he's actually considering the Fiendsmith in Paradise. And I was pondering, is he going to potentially set up a play where it's actually the normal kind of traditional trap effect as opposed to just the graveyard effect? No, he ended up cycling back to the Fiendsmith Track, and now he'll be able to draw off the Necro-Equip.
I was thinking about it for sure, but he might just want to save that for later or have some follow-up for next turn, considering he doesn't have the most explosive board here, and what Fiendsmith really specializes in is consistency over time. But we drew a card, didn't quite make it out there.
It was a monster, so if that's, you know, a few different of the Ryzeal cards, we could actually end up seeing the second half of his deck.
That's just 900. Yeah.
All it takes is one. Seeing that it's 900, we might be trying to go for game right here, but it looks like maybe a Chaos Angel. Could be a Fiendsmith sequence, 2 different directions to go. Fiendsmith sequence it is. Time for a little fusion here.
Oh, yeah.
He almost put the Fiendsmith Requiem there in the deck. Remember, it has been a long grind here.
Now, luckily, they're...
Oh, dropped a card. It's okay. We got judges up there. No fancy work here. There we go. Back into the deck.
You know, sometimes after you make it past the top 32, they re-sleeve and actually give you sleeves that may match your extra deck. So sometimes that's a bit of a concern when you're utilizing extra deck monsters that are in the same sleeves as your main deck. Luckily here, they're just still in those white sleeves, so it's easy to detect that.
Certainly got to be careful, but we are good to go as we bring out Fiendsmith's Desiree. Now, it would have been interesting, of course, to see the Fiendsmith in Paradise. I mean, he would be eligible to activate it, but it seems like we are not going to worry about that now as we link off into the Fiendsmith's Agmunde.
Yeah, I think he just valued the follow-up. So this is a really strong read, so he can kind of rule out Infinite Impermanence. It would have been activated earlier. This is dealing with one of those trap cards before Dormouse goes to the graveyard.
Oh, that's huge.
As we mentioned earlier, yes, heading into maybe the first event with Malice, people thought, well, there's 3 traps. I never want to affect Veiler Infinite Impermanence, a Malice normal summon effect. That's probably not true because of the fact that GWC06 requires there to actually be a Malice monster in the graveyard or banishment, and obviously that's not likely to be the case if the first player is to summon Dormouse. So by dealing with the trap card before Dormouse goes into the graveyard, it locks Jib out of utilizing the GWC06 to bring back that Dormouse for the following turn. So now he's going to need to have kind of another piece of action. And it does look like he has at least a White Rabbit. One of the things, though, about White Rabbit is it's the weakest one in terms of playing around Nibiru, plus there's a Desiree already on the board. And we know that Dennis has what actually looks like multiple copies of Nibiru.
It'd be difficult. We're going to go ahead and negate it immediately, though, with the Fiend Smith Desiree. So just have our Bystial Saronir going to go ahead and target the Dormouse there, banishing it, and we'll probably pay 300 soon. I could imagine why not.
So this is actually critical, though. He did have a copy of Saronir, which is interesting to see. It looks like Jib is elected to play the full package. He's taking the Billy Break approach. He's going triple Baldrake, triple Jerusalem, and triple Saronir, going even further than what Billy suggested with the 7. So the 10 Bystial package.
Not quite at Lubellion, though, so just deciding to use the Druid's Worms and, well, just drawing the Bystials themselves without having to search for them other than the Magnemud. But it's interesting to see everyone's got, like, a different opinion. I love this format because while you may think, okay, these are all just the same cards, each one of these duelists is doing something completely nuancedly different, and it's making the difference from game to game.
So this is going to be interesting. So he still has the ability to special summon White Rabbit from the Banish Zone, but he already activated its effect. Dormouse, a little bit different though. Dormouse, he's used the Banish effect. Sorry, used the effect of getting it back from the Banish Zone.
Going to play very carefully here, bringing out the Link Decoder and then linking 3, likely for a 2300 or higher attack Cyber Link monster. It looks like the choice is going to be
Probably Red Ransom.
Yeah, seems like he's eyeballing the Red Ransom for sure.
Red Ransom, Chainlink 1 Red Ransom, Chainlink 2 Decoder, Chainlink 3 Saronir.
Right, so using the Saronir to send somebody down to the graveyard. And then adding a spell, of course, and more.
So he's going to add one of the field spells. He's actually only playing 2 Malice in undergrad in his deck list, with 3 Chessie Cap, which is somewhat interesting. It's actually just quite a very interesting. He has no Allure of Darkness, but he's maxing out on all of the Malice names. So he's elected to max out all of the Bystials that can be special summoned by banishing a light or dark. So obviously no Bystial Nubellion, no Alibur, and also all of the Malice cards. So it's a really interesting configuration that Jib has settled on this weekend.
That is really interesting for sure. And sending the Bystial Magnemud to the graveyard, that's not sure what's going on there. Certainly has probably some experience, obviously making a choice there that's consistent. But let's go ahead and link off here and see where we're going next. Oh, just for a link 2. Would assume for Haggard Lizardos. Could be Splash Mage. Eyeballing both.
The problem with Splash Mage is this is one of the best ways of recovering post-Nibiru, and unfortunately this is being used pre-Nibiru.
So we're going to go ahead and bring the Dormouse back. And now linking again. Our powers combined. What are we bringing out next? Ah, okay, so there's the White Binder.
So now we're going to get the triple banish. He'll probably be able to get rid of the Lacrima, or at least attempt to get rid of the Lacrima, without there being a Requiem in the graveyard that will actually end up resolving. He's going to be banishing the Red Ransom, and then he still has access to special summon back the White Rabbit if he chooses to do so.
Really everything going Gabriel's way here.
The problem is just the Nibirus are going to be really challenging because he's already used the Splash Mage, which is one of the best ways. And as we get further and further into this play, there's just more and more of the Malice monsters whose effects have been used.
So paying a few more life points there. 900 off the top will bring him down to 2,300.
I will say that the Malice and Underground with the White Binder would have been one of the best ways of recovering. Now, being able to, if you didn't activate the effect to banish, but then banished it post Nibiru when it gets special summoned back, you could have activated the banish effect, but that's already now been used. So I wonder how long Dennis is going to hold on to this Nibiru. I wonder if Jib thinks he's already kind of checked for it a few times.
You started with White Rabbit, right?
Negated it. Yep.
Just double checking all the card effects that have activated. Almost feels like one of those long tier lament turns where you got to be like, okay, so what have we done so far?
I think he might consider doing it here. Because
It seems like it if he's asking for about the White Rabbit's effect, right? Because if you Nibiru and it comes back, well, it's not going to be doing its effect again.
All right, so let's see what is left for Jib. I know he's got the copy of Effect Veiler, sorry, the copy of Ash Blossom in his hand. And then, of course, he has the copy of Malice in Underground. What is he going to be able to recover with now that the White Binder's effect has already been activated?
So, turning the Agnonde. We go ahead and get rid of the token there.
Yep, through the effect of Desiree. Now we have Malice in Underground, so I'm really curious to see what he has left. Okay, so he is doing the White Binder. Maybe this is just potentially to draw. Yeah, so
another 900. I know we were at 23, so we must have paid 300 life points at some point. But it is getting real low in the life point category here.
he's going to be able to set another from his deck as well. So he's going to need, I think, a little piece of action here to go along with whatever the trap is that he's able to get. Off of White Binder, he's already used the GWCO6. So if he wants to put another monster on the field, oh, he can get it back from the graveyard.
He's considering his options too. We don't know where it's going any more than he does, but it looks like we are going to go ahead and get back the GWCO6.
Yeah, White Binder, that's one of the best ways of kind of reusing some of these one-ofs. He can, in fact, get that back from the graveyard. The only way he can activate it here, though, is if he banishes the White Binder, who's already been returned back to the field from the banish zone. So I think he's going to here just pass, yeah.
Okay, so Dennis draws for turn. Nibiru got it done, slowed him down for sure, but now he still has to get back into this duel again. So we'll start off with Fiend Smith track that we searched for last turn.
Yeah, just to kind of review, there's really two good ways post Nibiru for Malice to reestablish. It's to resolve Splash Mage or to resolve the banish effect off White Binder with the Malice in Underground, and then banish a couple of the Malice cards from your graveyard, and then all of a sudden you have 2 or 3 monsters back on the field, and you can turn the token potentially into a Link Spider. Unfortunately, both Splash Mage and the White Binder banish effect were activated pre-Nibiru, so we see here not the most intimidating ending board relative to what we've seen out of the Malice strategies.
Timing in Nibiru the Primal Being has been really important from round to round, right? We've seen people activate it quote-unquote early, and then we've seen people activate it really later than expected. But I think this is a card that's going to continue to do numbers this format. But it looks like, speaking of numbers, here is the precious number 1, the Fabled Blurry.
To reborn from Banish Pile.
So it's important to note that you can only activate that effect by banishing on the turn that it is set, so this won't banish the White Binder. He'll be just special summoning back.
Life points, right?
Yeah, and I gain life based on the monster's attack if I control them.
So he'll go up by 2,300 if this resolves, putting him at 4,300.
White Rabbit, gain 12, put me at...
Oh, that's right, because it is the monster that's special summoned, not the biggest monster on the field. That'd be too good. My apologies.
So this is going to probably get him access to MTP 07, which he would then be able to activate because it was set, which is how the White Binder could get banished this turn.
Couldn't imagine he would banish the Fabled Blurry, but it also is a possibility.
Yep, so there's the MTP. All right, so he actually is electing to banish the White Rabbit.
Mouse, and I'll banish the
Oh, he did banish the Blurry, okay.
And then I'll pay 300, so I'll go down to 22, summon back the White Rabbit.
Yeah, now he's going to put the White Rabbit on the field as a
Yep, summon back the White Rabbit.
essentially just a defensive position monster to potentially block
What do you
damage.
got?
I'm at
Certainly an important one.
2,300.
So 2,300 life points there on Gibbs' side, and still a
Yeah.
cool 8,000 for Dennis.
And you can't attack over the White Rabbit because of the presence of, obviously, a Link monster and the Malice in Underground.
All right, so we're going to discard Fiend Smith Engraver. It's good, so pick up the deck here and add... There is the Fiend Smith's Paradise.
So he's only playing 2 copies of Fiendsmith Track. in Dennis's list, so that's one of the ways that he's cut his deck down to 40. He's also only playing 2 copies of Sword Ryzeal, not that we've seen any of the Ryzeal cards.
Yeah, you'd think it's pure Fiendsmith at this point.
So the Fiend Smith in Paradise, the last option in terms of spell and traps. Now we see that Ash Blossom that we knew was there
critical.
for a little bit.
Dennis just taking a moment to assess his options.
That's good.
Maybe time. Maybe holding off on presenting any of the Ryzeal cards, just hoping to win this game and maybe set his opponent on the wrong side deck tracked.
I can't imagine he doesn't know that those are in the deck.
I think he's about to find out. All right, taking a look at the graveyard, though. Oh, Druid's Worm, actually. So we've got a banish from a Maliss graveyard. That could be really rough.
Probably just going to be one of the Bystial monsters.
Oh, that's true. There is Saranir and Magnemite there.
Sorry. God, man.
Those sleeves are a little slippery.
Yeah, just in case you're playing. This mine is yours.
All right,
Just in
so-
case you're playing.
Interesting to have the
That's
Druid's
just
Worm.
that 20.
Is that 20?
Dennis stating, just in case you're playing, thinks there must be something coming out next.
Brandon Regained is what that was about. Because the ability to summon the Magnemite back from the graveyard with Regained.
Yeah. Would be nice to keep recycling. Little does he know.
And you gotta take no battle damage because it's pointed to this.
Yeah, it didn't matter.
And attack with this. Yep.
So no battle damage, and then attack over, so we've cleared the
Man,
field.
hidden effects, man.
The hidden effects.
I mean, it is a vibe for getting somebody's card effects, but Dennis is able to keep playing forward.
I go ahead and. That's it.
And that's it. Set a card.
And he has to hope that's not the Fiend Smith in Paradise. Hopefully it's some point of interaction, because the Dormouse that he was able to cycle into his hand with this Gold Sarcophagus, it actually gives him multiple pushes this turn. It's possible here the Jib has actually finally grinded out Dennis's resources, because Dennis just simply never saw a Ryzeal monster.
Yeah, and now with the Chessy Cat paying 300 life points, still low, but amazing basically just get that free summon. I think the one thing we haven't seen on the featured match stage is all 3 traps banished in a single duel, so.
Yeah, that's a very infrequent but nevertheless important interaction to know. Oh, there's a dead Effect Veiler.
Yeah.
It might not be a big deal, though, because if that really is just a Fiendsmith in Paradise, I think Jib will probably be able to navigate through this turn without ever needing to use that Effect Veiler.
Well, I think we're paying down to 1,700 at this point, so going to go ahead and banish special summon. Actually, it'd be 300 more, so it'd be 1,400, so really getting low in life points, but
He'll be all right.
yeah, only the last one really matters. Dinomorphia Duelist can certainly attest to that. Multiple traps in the graveyard there. Just taking a quick look at what's going on here. With only a couple of Fiendsmiths in the graveyard, none of them named Lacrima. Definitely can push safely right now, maybe only now. So, looking through a myriad of Link monsters. Pausing on the Haggard Lizardos.
I mean, he's basically used Red Ransom and White Binder, meaning he's down to a Heart's Cryptor or some of the non-Malice Link monsters.
It's like maybe performing a Link 2. No, not performing a Link 2. Has to make a decision here. Single elimination tournament. Everything is on the line.
He's also used Splash Mage, which is kind of one of the unique ways of 2 monsters turning into 3 for Link purposes. This is one of the potential ways of Link climbing up to 5, which is Hazard Lizardors. He's banishing. Oh, he's going to banish a copy of Ash Blossom.
Really? How interesting. Maybe to prevent a Called by the Grave? That's a very specific interaction there, not choosing to banish any additional Malice monsters there or bring anything back. Maybe he doesn't want to go that low in life points.
Play around Hida, I guess. It just
True.
seems such like a corner case. I don't think this deck would be playing Hida.
You would have to both have Ash Blossom and be worried about Called by the Grave for my theory of the case to be right. But I do see that we're looking at the Malice White Binder. Going to go ahead and banish it with the SP Little Knight. How interesting. So you get to have SP Little Knight and still get the banish. That's pretty skillful.
And then White Binder is going to, when it's special summoned, allow him to draw a card, set a card, but then also banish a bunch from his graveyard. So,
hey, we may see those banish traps after all.
it is not impossible.
But it is a little improbable. I mean, you do have to assemble all the pieces there. All right, staying locked in, taking a look at the graveyard here.
Anything on the summon?
No, I don't.
Okay.
You're thinking?
So Dennis hasn't made a decision, not conceding past play yet.
And this is great, too, because he has the SP Little Knight to protect the White Binder from a card like Effect Veiler.
Hey, and it does banish it too, funny enough. Reordering the graveyard makes me feel like the White Binder is probably going to be used to banish a couple of cards in the graveyard, but Dennis has not passed priority at this time.
Yeah, so
Oh, wow. Dominus Impulse again, and there's a trap card in the graveyard.
yeah, and there's a Fiendsmith in Paradise set, so I think this is going to be it.
White Binder effect is out. Also at UWC, 6.
It's a reborn?
Yeah, so that's the reborn one. I'll activate it now. I'll banish White Binder to resummon White Binder and gain 20.
Okay.
So he goes to 28.
Doesn't actually use its effect, notice that. Did not pay 900.
Yeah, and gain 20.
No, he did it just through the GWC 06.
Even Dennis had to check the card just to make sure.
Okay, cool. I'm at 30.
So with an additional 23, should put him at 3,100, I believe. Climbing all the way up there.
Banish.
Now it's time to banish. Let's see, we're getting rid of Fiendsmith Engraver and Fiendsmith Requiem.
So he's clearing out the follow-up and also likely banishing one of his Malice monsters.
Oh, wow. So Red Ransom also banished, pay 900, which we just got plenty of life points back. It's going to bring him down to 2,200 life points, but that may not matter with a bunch of strong wing monsters on the field.
But 2 light monsters in hand that he can't activate, so
That
he's
is
going to have to
true.
try and find a way of navigating this turn with these monsters. I think he's going to be able to do it because he has full information. But he does have to consider how is he going to deal with the Druid's Room. There's a little bit going on.
I just paid 9. I'll go battle phase 29 into 0.
Okay.
Damage on this part.
So they'll bring Dennis down to 5,100, just going straight into main phase 2. Don't want to mess with that Druid's Worm. Don't catch no smoke. But let's go ahead and link here.
This is going to be a Nightmare Griffin.
Wow, using the SP Little Knight as one material and the Red Ransom for the full thing.
Oh, this is great. Now he's going to put those light monsters in hand to use by using Nightmare Griffins. I don't want to call it its secret effect. Maybe that's what some would consider it, but the additional effect beyond just the sort of negation of non-linked monsters, which is to reset a spell or trap from your graveyard.
Very powerful, and it gets the draw because of the co-link.
Just great value.
Just the
Add-
banish. Add him back. And then I'll draw.
So just incredible resource management, kind of a round the way to get through it, but you know, it is Malice and Underground, so curiouser and curiouser. We're going to find a way through this turn. But not a whole lot in the hand there. That Effect Veiler is not going to do much. And the other card couldn't quite catch what he drew. Looks like a Bystial Baldrake, perhaps. Oh, and the Abawaku, wow. So SP Little Knight is coming back.
Proceed to end phase.
Oh, interesting. So Nightmare Griffin is a light monster. Was he able to do that?
No, that was a turn before. That was the turn prior. Yeah.
Okay.
End phase.
He may not have been. We'll see. But
We do have judges up there, so we're good.
By me.
Yeah.
Battle.
Battle phase is.
regardless, this is at least one of the ways of potentially threatening the SP Little Knight, which is to just go right into the battle phase.
Use Mulcharmy targeting White Binder.
Well, it looks like they're all good.
Is that fine?
So, as play continues,
White Binder effect pay 9.
Yep.
Something. Can I draw a card?
Uh,
Is that good?
yeah, you're good. That's a banish, right?
looks like play is going to continue.
Yeah, you can beat it.
And
Yeah, concede. Yeah, he did.
Second off.
Yeah.
So judges are taking a quick second here. We might end up
Oh.
rewinding the game state because the Nightmare Griffin
Griffin,
was
yeah.
a light. Okay. So I'm glad the judges were able to catch that on stage. So we might have to rewind the game. Said, hey, remember, it's been a long day, duelists. Those of you at home sitting comfortably might be like, I would never have done that. Well, it happens. It happens. But don't worry, they're going to figure this out for just a second. But other than that, what an interesting turn here. But also remember, the Abao Aku is also light.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff may not be able to do.
This is what I just drew off of White Binder, and this is what I drew off of
I mean, for all intents and purposes, Jib is really far ahead, regardless of how he decides to kind of construct the ending board.
Oh,
It
yeah,
looks like
it's-
Dennis just has a Fiendsmith in Paradise, and he drew a Fualos.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll allow the judges to kind of determine what the best path forward here is, but it does look like Jib is in a pretty dominant position.
Well, let's talk about what a rewound game state is for those in the chat. So if there's ever an error in gameplay and a judge is able to talk with the players and correctly rewind the game state, even if there's been information that's been given away, that's okay. You basically just go backwards in time as long as the hand hasn't been shuffled, or we can at least identify every card that's supposed to be in hand. You will get a procedural error minor, but you don't have to worry about that if you haven't received any penalties like that previously in the tournament. It's going to be up to the discretion of the head judge to spot that out and upgrade it if it is there, but if it's just the first mistake, hey, mistakes happen. Again, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, I love it, but it is still a little complicated, especially after so many rounds of play. So,
And I think that's especially the case if you're playing either Dominus Impulse or Dominus Purge in your deck, but then still electing to play the attributes that are affected by either of those two cards. It's just something that if you're going into an event with those cards in your deck, you need to be fully aware of.
it is. It's kind of the clash there. You know, we talked about it when he activated that Dominus Impulse so early in the duel that his effect failures were basically dead. But we didn't think about all the other cards in the extra deck, so that is something to really watch for. But it looks like the judges are helping him figure things out. And there may be a time extension here, but that's up to them, not us. So yeah, we're just gonna cut. Okay, so we're back to normal. We're good.
Yep, he can't activate the Griffin, and now
Yeah.
he can't activate the Abao either.
That's right. And that is the important thing. You might overhear the judges in the background there. The important is making the same mistake. It's not just that you made a procedural reminder.
Yeah.
It's the same mistake.
Yeah, so now he'll use Abao to bring out the SP. Abao being a dark monster, that is something that we can do.
All right, well, let's resume our previously scheduled programming here at the YCS. Didn't have to take a break there. We got everything back under control. And so, yeah, 900 life points would be back, so it should be 3,100 life points on the blue side. We'll get that update in just a moment. It's not a bad field. It really isn't, but it's just not as powerful as having Nightmare Griffin, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Hey, good enough. Great enough.
I think this is Dennis's turn. Because I think there's now officially a card in his hand, which would have been the Mulcharmy Fualos
That's right.
that he would have drawn for his turn naturally.
But it doesn't help anymore, right? We did rewind the game state and everything, but it still doesn't do much when you've only got Drua's Worm, Fiend Smith in Paradise, and a Fualos that can't be activated because there's cards on the field.
So we did rewind, though I think for all intents and purposes, Jib was in a winning position regardless. We'll just get there in the correct path forward.
You've created a time paradox. We've rewound time, but jokes aside, looks like we are going to banish the red ransom, pay the 900, which should bring it back from the 31 now to the 2,200.
Ransom, and I will banish one from deck.
Certainly difficult to play the Dominus cards. I actually play Dominus Impulse myself in, and you're going to make fun of me, but Primite Red Eyes Metal Morph, which has monsters that are light, and you just have to order your operations correct. And Earth, too, actually, now.
Yeah, you good.
Pay 300
With the
more,
hand interaction
summon
ones,
19.
it's understandable that you can sequence those. It's the extra deck ones that can be really difficult because if the turn goes past the first iteration of your extra deck monsters, which is exactly what we saw here, all of a sudden Jib looked at his extra deck and none of the Malice ones were in there except maybe a Heart's Cryptor. And he's looking at, 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 cards without that full array of options, all of a sudden the fact that 2 or 3 of them might be light monsters, he has even less. So it does restrict some of those, let's say, 3 or 4 turn forward extra deck plays.
It's definitely a decision you have to make. I know duelists who play the other set of attributes have to make the same choices with Dominus Purge, which will probably get more popular as light monsters come back into the format quite soon. But right now, I think this still may end up being game for Dennis, because all we've got again is the Druid's Worm and the Fiend Smith of Paradise here. I think we're going to go into the battle phase.
So,
And
this is
Druid's Worm.
2,000.
2,000.
And this is just 23?
Yeah.
Druid's Worm's only at 2,000. Going to go ahead and crash, take the 300, and take out the White Binder.
White Binder.
So Red Ransom still ransoming those attack and defense points. I got them all mixed up. Can't find your files, right?
Switch to attack.
We are going to switch to attack mode here.
Activate Druid's Worm target binder.
Oh, that might be
That
game
should
right
do it.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to scoop up the card. So we had to get it, you know, back. All right, well, Dennis getting back in there. Let's see how he decides to start the duel.
We had a dimension shifter check there where Dennis kind of asked, am I good? And Jib says, yep, you are good. So it looks like we're going to start with X'd Ryzeal. Presumably he's either going to send a Aggregator and Eclipse Twins, or he could actually potentially send a Ryzeal to the graveyard as well. Those are kind of the 3 most commonly sent ones in this opening play. It's going to be the Eclipse Twin.
Definitely feeling the impact there of Supreme Darkness. It's such a cool card with such a unique set of abilities, but now we're actually seeing the Ryzeal part of Dennis's deck. I don't think we saw a single Ryzeal card last duel.
No, he tried to win with Bystial Fiendsmith control, which is a deck that we saw successful this weekend, but the problem is those decks maxed out on so many of those cards, whereas it's a small percentage of Dennis's deck. I really appreciate Dennis's brisk play here too. He kind of understands that that first game went quite a while, and you can't draw on the top 32, but you don't want time to be that big of an issue here. So
Good search.
We don't have to worry about any ties here because the single elimination rules are different, but Duo Drive is not going to be doing anything here with the Effect Failure coming down.
I think Jib has multiple copies of Effect Failure. It doesn't look like he has a Dominus Impulse, but
Well, better spend him now.
Yeah.
He doesn't see the impulse. Considering, okay, so we're going to normal some of the ice there. Oh, thinking.
could potentially activate another copy of Effect Failure, like I mentioned.
Wouldn't be awful. Oh, but he's going to let it go through. Okay. So special summoning, an extra Ryzeal in defense mode.
So he's locked out of his Fiend Smith package this turn, because he actually started with extra Ryzeal, which isn't exactly the most ideal opening if you're playing the Fiend Smith cards, but presumably you would use the Fiend Smith cards first, so it's kind of a matter of whether or not he would draw into them in some way with something like Ryzeal Cross. It looks here like we're going to go Druid's Worm, Chain, Baldrake.
So getting rid of both the Effect Failure in the graveyard and the Eclipse Twins. Not having to worry about Eclipse Twins later, but also having something for Baldrake to chomp on to use its effect to get rid of a freshly summoned monster from the extra deck, but also sending the Druid's Worm to the graveyard to take one more out as well.
2-9, right?
And again, like you mentioned, that Eclipse Twins has been banished, so he theoretically could have potentially went to a Detonator to put that underneath, but that's not nearly as ideal of a play now. He still is going to go into Detonator, but he has nothing to attach to it.
It's still good.
So now he's going to Chain to destroy the Baldrake.
Still
Now-
gets it done, though, by the end of this. So that's going to be banished. And you can still send, and send does not destroy, so cleared that field.
So now we special summon Node, and he's going to actually have to use something from his hand. I think there's a Fiend Smith in Paradise there.
That's a good way to
And
get to the
another-
graveyard.
Oh,
wow.
wow. Look at this. Jib goes 4 hand interactions, White Rabbit left over. So one of the good feelings about this is certainly you stopped your opponent from having any type of onboard interactions, but because you're down to just one single card, it's a starter, which is great. Any interaction from Dennis, and it looks like he just drew another copy of White. Oh, this is a Chessy Cat.
That's
okay.
actually really good because if you're already going to be facing one negated effect anyway, you might as well pay the cost of banishing the White Rabbit with Chessy Cat. Maybe you get to draw 2 cards, or your opponent has to make that decision. Do I worry about the Chessy Cat, or do I worry about the Malice White Rabbit?
I think he just uses the Ash Blossom here. Yeah, it's a Malice card in hand. You can't talents. Great point.
Yeah, he knows exactly what's going on.
So what's actually really interesting is if he instead just went with White Rabbit as opposed to the Chessy Cat,
he would have been able to set. That would not have stopped it.
Unfortunately, though, in the inverse, though, then Chessy Cat would have been locked in his hand with no guaranteed Malice card. So it's kind of interesting how that was sequenced. He may have been a little bit better off getting the White Rabbit because that cannot be hit by Ash Blossom, though presumably one of the cards he would get off of it would be. But in all things considered, at least he still has the White Rabbit to follow up. But as you just saw there, Dennis right off the top drew Lacrima right on time. And now he's going to access that Fiendsmith package. He's going to go into Requiem, into Fiendsmith Engraver.
I think from, the Malice perspective, you have to go for broke, right? If that Chessy Cat resolves, you just blow this duel wide open with effects. But unfortunately, it didn't resolve, so now he is watching his opponent, Dennis, just go through the full Fiendsmith here.
And you get punished by a lot of the similar cards, Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence. Ash Blossom's a little bit different, but I do kind of ultimately think the idea of keeping the White Rabbit in hand is probably the best. Because the Chessy Cat doesn't do anything alone. And Dennis, look how fast he's playing, understanding there's very little time after that first game.
Knows he needs to fit in 2 games here, not just 1.
Yep, Gigambe. You see that Chessy Cat destroyed. Back comes a Ryzeal off Node Ryzeal. Now we can go into the Ryzeal part of the deck. We're going to go into a Detonator. Wow. He could actually potentially put Desiree underneath it. That's...
Oh, it looks like he put Ash Blossom underneath, but there.
So it looks like we have a Metal Tronus, a Bystial, 2 Bystials, and 2 Malice monsters. So we have Chessy Cat.
Maybe the Chessy Cat will resolve this time.
There are some Mulcharmies in Dennis's hand.
Oh, and I see an Ash Blossom too.
I think I see a Fuwalos, and there are no interactions for Mulcharmies in Jib's hand. So this could be unfortunate. I definitely think you follow up with this, and then if you have Fuwalos, I think you're going to activate that next because he's going to link away because he has a Bystial in hand. Or not. Hold off, I guess.
So linking up for 1 Link Decoder. And going to go ahead and use the Bystial Magnum at perfect timing to get rid of the Chessy Cat and bring it back. It's amazing how fast this deck is able to put out 3 monsters for its Link summons.
Is this Meowls? It is.
Oh, hey, we got to see it.
Yes. All right, I checked it off.
Another one off the list. Okay, so for those of you who haven't seen Meowls like we haven't, that's going to be 1 drawn card for everything special summon from the graveyard and banishment. And there's the Fuwalos.
Maybe he was afraid that if he activated Fuwalos, that Jib would have just passed and not gone into the extra deck, which would have basically made him discard the Fuwalos and then not get the Meowls draw. Now I think he's guaranteed that he at least gets the 1-for-1 exchange with the Meowls, and now he's more incentivized to also get at least special summon 1 time for Fuwalos. So he gets to cycle through at least 2 cards in his hand so that going on to his turn, he'll have a full hand.
Wow.
Well, never
Speaking
mind.
of full hand, yeah, never mind about that. The Infinite Impermanence causing the crowd to cheer out here at the venue. Because it's true that, you get a little bit of a reimbursement from those cards. You may not worry about it, but it could be very powerful. And speaking of powerful, we're getting Bystial Baldrake here. Going to banish Bystial Magnamut.
Now we're going back into the extra deck.
Oh, 1 more draw then for
summon.
Dennis.
I could see this being SP
Actually,
Little
why did I
Knight.
shuffle?
That will
I
allow
don't think
him
he
to
went in.
banish
Oh,
the white binder. This is unfortunate because he's going to draw off
he is.
the Fuwalos. And now the white binder is going to get banished. And then the white binder is going to be special summoned back. And then he's going to...
Why draw 2?
Both. I mean, I drew 1 already for SP, but I'm going to draw 2 for this.
No, this is one I saw from the action.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it was
He's just making sure. It's been a long day. I don't think I have seen this many Mulcharmy draws since the NAWCQ when Fuwalos first came out and players were just trying to frustratedly play through it. And so this may be the same thing. People may not be used to Meow. Supreme Darkness just came out.
And I think just Jib is priced into this because it's so close to the end of the round. I wonder if we're going to get the +6 card difference.
Well, here's the thing, too. With him having lower life points, he has to keep playing to get to the GWC 06 to be able to special summon and gain life points, or else he is at a disadvantage.
Yeah, so the amount of cards that Dennis draws could end up not mattering at all. He is kind of tunnel visioning into a way of gaining life points. He's going to need a way of stopping that from resolving. And I'm not sure he has a lot of cards in his deck to actually realistically do that.
Well, he is going to have to duel trying. So here comes the GWC. Going to go ahead and banish.
Yep.
Summon back from the grave, draw another card. You should be drawing another for the Meows because that is from the graveyard.
So how crazy would this be if we actually got to see the shuffle back? You never see that from Mulcharmy's. Wait,
Yeah.
shake.